Gabe, welcome to the show. Glad you're here, bud.
Thanks so much, Mark. Looking forward to it.
I well, first off, just tell people just a couple of sentences of we're going to get into it, but just what's
hmm
the mini elevator pitch of what you guys do?
Yeah, essentially, what we're out to do is change the way that we think of farming, specifically growing fruit. So we're taking traditional large-scale monocrop agriculture, distributing it to smaller plots of land, and incorporating more stakeholders, more community.
And so I wanted to hear that before I said I remember being on the Riviera at a dinner party and looking out on the balcony here at the Riviera here in Santa Barbara. It's beautiful. It's on the hillside, and everybody's packed in pretty close, and it's pretty steep. But I saw all of this land, and I said, "Wow, where do you have time to do all that farming?" And they said, "Oh, we're part of this co-op. They come in and take care of it. They do all the planting, and we supply the
Mm,
soil and the water." And when I saw your company, I thought, "Gosh, it sounds like kind of the same thing, but it's with fruit trees."
right. Yeah, that sounds similar.
So you're telling me that, and because I spent a lot of time on the website looking at this, if I have a home and I've got a front yard, I've got a big backyard, or happen to have maybe a big piece of property, Green
hmm
Spot will come in and you'll work with me to put fruit trees into the yard, and then you guys take care of them. And then what happens? I mean, is that so far that's exactly what happens?
So far, so good. Yeah, I think an easy analogy that folks can grab onto is thinking about what Airbnb did for folks who have an extra bedroom or a
Oh,
spare guest house.
yeah.
And so what they allow people to do is to take that unused or underutilized asset, whether it's a bedroom, a guest house, whatever it might be, and you put it to use. So they
Sure.
monetize it, they enable you to do something rather than nothing. And we're taking that logic and applying it to people's green space. So whether it's a homeowner with a little yard, um, a lot of acreage, it could be a business, corporate campus, a municipality, anywhere that there's unused or underutilized green space, that's where we want to come in and plant fruit trees to make it more beautiful, but also more productive.
I have so many questions. First one, is there what if I only have room for one tree? Does that work? You do one tree?
We did in the beginning. That's something that we've applied a minimum to, but we were
What's
getting
the
one
minimum?
tree in. So we'll do three trees, as small as
Okay,
three
oh, that's
trees.
fair.
And yeah, most folks who have space for a tree, they usually have space for a few. One thing that's great about planting outside of, a traditional commercial ag operation
Yeah.
is the spacing and the distance between trees. You don't have to account for passing a tractor through rows of trees.
Oh,
So it allows for a little bit more dynamic and creative planting, which is really fun.
I've got to feel that as we become more interested and more aware of sustainability and farming and things like regenerative agriculture and paying
hmm
attention to the soil, we've had lots of those conversations on the show.
Right.
That this feels like for busy people like myself, like growing tomatoes and beans and lettuce and all that, that's just a lot of work, right? There's a lot of work to that. However,
Certainly.
this is, hey, Green Spot's going to do all the work, right?
Well, even better is the tree does most of it. So unlike row crops, um, unlike a vegetable garden that needs, a pretty high touch and constant water, a fruit tree can get water once a week. And outside of that, it needs dirt and sunshine. So there's not much to do in the maintenance department. There's nothing in the way of pruning that you would consider for planting in rows, like I said, in a traditional grove or ranch. So what it really is people planting fruit trees because they like fruit and they want to eat it and see it grow. And then outside of that, like you said, you might know a lot of people who have fruit trees, but it's hard to find anyone who can eat all their fruit.
Well, I was just thinking about that. My in-laws have they live on hillside in Shepherd's Mesa. They've got a lot of darn trees and way too much fruit. And I mean,
Yeah,
I get a lot. You know, I love to cook, but
right.
we can't eat it all and can't cook it all. So is what you do is you figure out where the market is for all that fruit as well, much kind of like an avocado co-op.
Something like that. So we take excess fruit where it's growing already. So
Yeah,
if it's not a tree that we planted, but you have a productive, let's say it's one tree. If you take
yeah.
one lemon tree, that can be enough work for someone who cares enough to give away lemons. It's still hard to keep up with. So what we do is we work with local retailers and we keep that fruit in our food system here in Santa Barbara. And
Oh,
so if you have, let's say, 100 pounds of lemon on your tree and you eat a lemon a week, whatever it is, there's going
yeah.
to be excess. So we come by, we'll pick it up. It's no charge. Our services
No
are cost
charge.
free. Correct.
Huh?
And even better yet is what we do is because we're selling this fruit into the food system, we're adding value to what would traditionally be food waste or a chore for you to
Right,
pick it up
right.
off the
Another
lawn.
another problem. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're generating revenue from selling fruit wholesale, and then we share that revenue with the grower who is a farmer on our distributed farm. So you with one lemon tree and excess fruit can now participate in the food economy. You can profit share from your excess
Huh.
lemons, and so that cash incentive is an extra kick for people to do something rather than nothing with this excess fruit that's out there in abundance.
Okay, so this, you know, there's sometimes a story sounds too good to be true. And when this is one of those stories, so there's a
Right.
dragon in this story, even in The Hobbit, when they find the mountain full of gold, and then Schmeagol
Mhm.
opens his eye and we find out the gold is burying a dragon. Where's the dragon in this story, sir?
You know what we have is just something that is essentially good. We set out to
Well,
create a product that really does provide a win-win-win and a beneficial service. So it's low barrier of entry to participate. You just need either space or fruit on your trees. Our services are cost free, like I said, so you're not getting an invoice. If anything, you're getting a check. And in the end of it, what we result the end result is less food wasted. It's more trees planted, and no tricks up our sleeve. We just are out to do something good.
is the I guess so. The deal is there's a market for it. So you go to Mesa Produce and Tri County Produce, and you have deals with all the produce buyers around town, and they know
Hmm.
what you're bringing in, and someone's comes kind of like the fishermen, what they do, right? So they'll make a call and say, "This is what we have." Um, is there a point where you have too much and you can't sell it all, and you then maybe go to the food bank or something like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it actually strikes a chord with sort of a larger theme with our food system here in town. So let's say that we do have too much fruit. I've got too many oranges on hand. The market here is saturated. We have two options. One is to go a little bit further away, and we
Oh,
really do try to keep it as local as possible. So further away for us just means into the next county over. Maybe that's into Ventura, San Luis Obispo, but it's certainly not on a freight and going overseas or across state lines.
right.
And then the other option that we rely on is to bring it into the food bank. If there's no market for it and we can't
Yeah.
move it before it goes bad, we give it away. And so
Yeah.
there's no fruit waste and it ends up on someone's table. And that's sort of, what we promise to folks who do move fruit through us is that it's going to be eaten. And that knowledge is often enough to motivate people, which I think is so great.
So when I think about the land, like where could you get the most bang for the buck? Clearly, it's going to be in with the municipalities, and just thinking of the green aprons along the streets, and who
Hmm.
wouldn't want a whole street of peaches or cherries or whatever grows best here. Um,
Hmm.
I'm going to guess though that while that sounds fantastic, that those conversations are harder than we might imagine. What's the biggest objection you get from the
Yeah,
bureaucrats?
great question. When we started out, in my naive mindset, thought that it was as simple as I've got fruit trees, you want them, let's
Heck yeah,
plant them.
let's do it.
Um, but there are, often some sort of bureaucratic structure that, the idea has to pass through. And somewhere along the way, it's going to get snagged because of a liability concern if someone's climbing on a fruit tree, or a
Okay.
rodent concern if the fruit falls and feeds the
Okay.
rats,
Okay.
something like that.
Okay.
But we've found success working with folks who control their own space. So, private landowners, residents, businesses, people like that who really do see the benefit of growing trees, and then the compounding benefits of growing trees that produce food, whether it's
Oh,
for their own
yeah.
interest. You
Yep.
can grow trees because you love to eat oranges. That you qualify. And you can also grow trees because you love to take climate action and want to help the environment,
Right.
or you want to provide healthy calories for your neighbors. There's lots of ways that these benefits spin out. And so I think having that as ammunition really does move the idea along in working with people to plant trees.
Now, how long have you been doing this? Remind me.
We've been doing it for 2 years, a little over 2 years now.
And how many trees are out there in the wild?
Yeah, out there on our
Uh,
distributed farm, we've got
yes, in your
over 50,
database, your Airtable database of all of
yeah,
those.
over 1,500 trees now are
No.
out there growing for us and for the people. And so,
Wow.
that there's no easy way to pin down what that will result in carbon sequestration, but it's not zero. So those trees that are resting on people's properties are helping mitigate their carbon footprint, and helping provide nutrient dense food for themselves and their families. and
Yeah.
and the trees that were planted now 2 years ago are just starting to come online. These trees might have had a few lemons along the way, but it's really, over the next 3 to 5 years that they'll start producing, and that's what we're really excited about.
I'm guessing you also have access to experts on these trees so that not only do I get a tree that's going to produce, I'm also getting the expertise we're going to get the most yield out of that tree possible given my soil and all of those things. So that's a plus. I had a separate question though. I have two, but I will start with the first one. I don't know why this seems like a logical, possible thing, but is this a work program for people who might find it hard to get a job?
Not yet, but that's really interesting. We're playing with all sorts of ideas for the logistics of how can we best move around fruit, that doesn't look like a traditional
Right.
emission heavy food system. So,
Yeah.
one of the problems, one of the inspirations that really drives the concept for the business is that traditionally food is grown on big plots of land far away from where people live, trucked in and
Yeah.
out, and there's emissions and food waste all along the way. Um, but there's all sorts of ideas that we talk about internally. Things like, what does it look like if it's a harvest share instead of a ride share app? What does it look like if
Oh,
we can get people a cut of the profit to do the harvesting, or to pick up and deliver when they're on their way on a route already, and ways that we can sort of tie things together so people can participate in the food system and also benefit financially.
it sounds like you've thought of everything. I'm curious, how many green spots are out there in the world?
Yeah, great question. So right now we're working with about 60 properties, over 60 now, and that's
60
specifically here in the
businesses
county.
like no, no, how many businesses?
Oh,
I'm sorry, I phrased it wrong. How many
yeah, gotcha.
Gabes are out there in the world?
Yeah, so there's nothing exactly like Green Spot,
No
as
kidding.
far as we've come across. What there are nonprofit organizations who do cleaning, and they do food rescue and harvesting, and those efforts are really important. And in our early stages, I went around to as many of those as I could find and asked them, what does this look like if we step in and start picking fruit? Are we
Right.
stepping on your toes? Are we going to be in your way? And the message that I got without fail was, we need all hands on deck. There's so
Oh,
much fruit
great.
out there. We have, beautiful weather, abundance here in Santa Barbara, and there's so much fruit on the trees that not any one sector, not any one organization can get to it all.
We've heard the term food desert, and I explained that we're blessed to live in a food rainforest. There's just so much bounty here. Have you been able to successfully negotiate really good pricing on your root stock and the trees themselves?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So if you go to a retail nursery and look to buy a fruit tree, it might be $50.
Yeah,
But if
yeah,
if
that's
you
my
can,
guess.
right, if you can get them in volume, from a wholesale provider who, let's say, provides stores like Home Depot or a hardware store, and they're selling fruit trees in volume, you can get them for half of that. So there are options out there to source trees for cheaper, and we love when we can find quality fruit trees that will last, and that's what we try to pass along to our partners.
I'm guessing with the right pitch, maybe this talk as a part of it, you could go convince some of these nurseries as a part of a corporate social responsibility pledge on their part.
Mm.
They could be a part of this wonderful movement that you're doing at Green Spot. I'm so glad you've been able to share the highlights of what we're doing, Gabe.